You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and welcome to another awesome episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. We now have full podcast transcriptions over at justinhealth.com. Head over to justinhealth.com, click on the podcast button, and you'll be able to access all shows forward and past. And while you're there, feel free and sign up for the thyroid and hormone video series. Some great information there for everyone. And while you're there, you can also sign up for the podcast newsletter, where you'll get access to these podcasts right in your inbox before anyone else. While you're there, you can also schedule a consult with myself if you want to dive into any other functional medicine or health issues. You can also access my partner in crime here, Barris Harvey, at reallyhealthynow.com. Barris is also available for nutritional consults as well. Again, stay tuned for the show, and if you're enjoying it, please feel free and share it. Sharing is caring. Think of one person that could benefit from this show and share it. And also, feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com/iTunes and send us a review. We really appreciate it. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here from Beyond Wellness Radio, and today we have a super awesome guest, Susan McCauley, and Susan has two websites. She has evolvednutrition.com as well as her podcast at evolvedrecovery.com. So make sure everyone checks out her site and signs up for her awesome podcast. Well, Susan, we're super happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in Austin, Texas. I'm maybe hop on the boat later on tonight if I have enough time, but really excited to chat with you because the topics that I think we're going to address today are near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I think so too. The things that we do at Evolved Recovery is, talking, getting to know people and understand what addictions do and carrying the real food word out there beyond our little kind of paleo circle that we get into. We forget that there's so many millions of people out there that don't know what real food is.
Exactly. And before we kind of get in, I want people to know your story because I think you got a really good one to share. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, what I had for breakfast this morning is 2 chicken sausages from Trader Joe's, the chicken garlic ones, which are don't have any nightshades because I do have an autoimmune disease. And I had a couple bites of sauerkraut and some leftover grilled asparagus grown locally because asparagus is grown about 20 minutes from my house here in California and grilled by my husband out on the barbecue last night.
Oh, wow. That just sounds absolutely awesome. So sweet.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my normal. I don't eat eggs every day because of the autoimmune. I have something called ulcerative proctitis, which is the distant cousin to ulcerative colitis. Mm-hmm. And so I'm far enough along in my journey that I know what I can and can't eat. Right. And I can't eat certain things every day like eggs. I relegate those to the weekends with my bacon. And so a lot of sausage, the sausages from Trader Joe's, and I have a recipe on my website for some pork, zesty pork sausages that my husband says taste like the sausage inside the sausage McMuffin with egg from McDonald's. So if that's kind of thing that you like, then head on over to my website and grab that recipe.
That's sweet. Awesome. Well, can you share with all the listeners your story?
Sure. So my story actually kind of dates back about 16 years when I first got clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. I'm starting to write more and more about it, and you can find some information on my website. So my bottom happened 16 years ago, and I got clean and sober, but didn't, I never had a problem with my weight. I had a period of a couple years one time when I gained a whole bunch of weight, but, took it right off. And so health really never was on my radar, even though my mom had died of lung cancer that metastasized to brain cancer when I was 9, and she smoked cigarettes. But I smoke cigarettes because that's kind of what you do when you're in recovery. You smoke cigarettes and you drink a lot of coffee and you stay up late. and you eat fast food. And that's kind of what I did for about 7, 8 years until I decided, probably smoking cigarettes wasn't going to keep me alive for very long. And it wasn't pretty or sexy, or it didn't smell good. It was all these
Yeah.
things. And so I quit smoking. And then that's how everything kind of changed. I started
Hmm.
developing an appetite and didn't know what to eat. I thought low fat was the way to go weight-wise. So I did everything. I started yo-yo dieting, and that was kind of my downfall. I had another kind of bottom a few years later when I developed kind of a binge eating thing going on, where I felt very out of control with my eating in respect to like processed carbs, like donuts and potato chips. And it was because I was so nutrient depleted, because all I was eating basically was boneless, skinless chicken breast, because I thought carbs were bad and I thought fat was bad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. So you can imagine I was just so depleted, and I developed some digestive issues, and Kaiser couldn't tell me what was wrong with me. And then my husband I was just like at my wit's end, and I was crying a lot. And he did, guys, you know how it is. You
Yeah.
want to fix. And so he found something called Whole30. And he said, "Hey, baby, why don't you read this and take a look at it?" And I read it, and it spoke to me. And I said, "I think I want to do this." And he goes, "I'll do it with you." And I said, but he drank at the time at least a 12-pack of Diet Coke every day.
Wow.
I know. Like, we would buy 12 packs of Diet Coke a week, but then he worked too. So whenever he was out of the house, that's how much he drank at home. And I said, "But you can't drink Diet Coke." And he doesn't have a problem with drugs or alcohol. He's like completely normal kind of guy. And he goes, "I could do anything for 30 days. And we just never looked back. We started like the next Sunday, and my binge eating thing, I still have my moments, don't get me wrong, but that was relieved. My digestive symptoms kind of went away, and I didn't even put two and two together till about 4 years later. But what I really noticed was my brain seemed to work better, and nothing seemed to be as hard. When you're in recovery, when things don't go exactly how you want, which I think happens
Right.
to people that aren't even in recovery, it's very stressful, and we don't have, I guess, a good way to relieve that stress like other people might, like by having that glass of wine at night.
Hmm.
But everything seems so much easier. And it was just like finally I realized I quit my job. I, had made upwards of 6 figures, and I was a executive at a food manufacturer, and I was miserable, and I quit my job and I went back to school to become a holistic nutritionist. And that's when I learned in school why everything was working, was because my brain actually had the nutrients it needed to make the things that it needed to make me feel good.
Okay.
It's like, oh, my brain had fat,
Right.
and my brain had animal protein, and my brain had all the micronutrients that come from fruits and vegetables, so I could make my serotonin and my dopamine, all the things that I needed to, keep my brain functioning properly.
Got it. Now, you said you were like kind of an insider food executive. So can you give us a perspective of what it was like on the inside? And now that you're like an outsider, and it'd probably be hard for you to go back to that job knowing what you know, can you give us an insider's perspective?
Well, it's funny. The company I worked for makes soup for and a lot of other kettle-based, like think liquid products for companies like Whole Foods. So I was a Whole Foods insider from way before I even knew anything about what real food was. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I know why they use canola oil. They use canola oil because it's cheaper than olive oil.
Exactly.
And because it's all about scent. When it comes down to food, everybody needs to understand that it comes down to cents per ounce. That's what you talk about because I was a CFO. So you talk about profitability and you talk about cents per ounce. And the other huge thing where it comes down to is the food manufacturers, it's not their job to get you healthy. They are beholden to their stockholders, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with capitalism or free market society. But we just need to be aware of that. Their
Yes.
job is to be profitable. And that's all we need to do is to be aware of that. So then we kind of can put on our thinking cap and say, does that make sense or does that not make sense? So the things that the food manufacturers like to do, one of the things, we had one customer, and I'm not going to name the customer, they used MSG in their product.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was an umami type of product, and they didn't want to put MSG on the label anymore. And so
Wow.
we had to have we had a person devoted to labels that broke it out into autolyzed yeast extract and one other thing, so that MSG wasn't on the label anymore. The other thing is they like to break up, use more than one form of sugar, so sugar doesn't have to be first on the label.
Exactly.
Or roll up a whole bunch of different products into like a parentheses, so then the healthy thing looks like it comes first.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
I see.
so there's a lot of, I have a whole label reading series on my website. But the main thing is it really does come down to dollars and cents and looking for the cheaper product.
Yeah.
When you see things like or like sometimes you'll look at a product and it'll say the different fats, because I always look for fats. It'll say sunflower oil or safflower oil or canola oil. So what that means is the purchasing person is looking for whatever's cheapest at the moment, so they don't have to switch the label up every time.
Got it. And I know
Yeah.
for like the longest time, like I just could not get any mayo without canola or soy, and it drove me nuts. And I saw at Paleo Effects, they had Mark's Primal Mayo.
Oh, yeah. I
Mark's
haven't
Daily
tried
Apple.
that yet.
I got it. It's really good because it's got the avocado oil in there, which is nice because I always do my tuna fish with cut up avocado and salsa, and it's
Oh,
just
yum.
a really nice mix.
Yeah, we make our own here. In fact, I've even trained my husband how to make my recipe, so I don't even have to make it anymore.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's like
How do
always
you do
there.
it? Do you do
Uh,
avocado oil or olive oil?
I use light tasting olive oil. So it's not the highest quality olive oil.
Yes.
It's just less expensive. I have a video actually on my website with the recipe, and it's just 2 pastured egg yolks, a little bit of dry mustard, the olive oil, a white pepper, which I'm really a big fan of using white pepper in recipes. White wine vinegar. I don't use lemon juice. I don't like the way lemon juice makes mayo taste.
Mmm.
And salt, of course. Very simple recipe.
Awesome. That's on your website?
Yep, and a how-to video. I use
Awesome.
the immersion blender, and it's just so much easier. You don't have to drizzle the olive oil in. You just put it all together and put the immersion blender in, and it's like magic. I think that's why my
Sweet.
husband likes to do it, because he feels very accomplished.
Nice.
It's like,
Yeah,
magic, I made mayo.
that's sweet. Yeah, if you can send me that after the show, I'll put it up for the show notes so everyone can get access to that.
Sure.
That's great. I love a good mayo. Awesome.
Mine tastes, it's very best foods like, or Hellman's if you're on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. And I think you mentioned a couple of things that are really important about, people have to know that the food companies are trying to produce a product and make money, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they just don't have your health, at first priority. So it's really important that people get educated and they know how to read some of the back of those labels. And I know in the pre-interview before the show, we chatted about a couple of different topics, and one being kombucha, because it's like the newest, or I shouldn't say the newest, but the last 5 to 10 years or so, it's been a really big health kick, especially the last few. But, I've noticed a couple of things, and you noticed a couple of things about kombucha, that it's turning into the new soda, so to speak. So can you touch upon that?
Yeah, I was actually in Austin at Paleo FX this year, and they have the Austin Whole Foods is just like the mothership for us real food people. It's like huge, it's beautiful, they have everything, and they had a
Yeah.
whole cooler full of local kombucha, and I was so excited because I always look to buy local ferments like kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, kvass, all the
Yeah.
different things, because it's local. Tasting new and different things is really neat for me. And so
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, local kombucha. So I started reading, and I'm a label reader, like I said. I always read labels, and sometimes I even get stumped. But so I'm looking at these labels, and it's like I'm looking at the servings because that's what I always instruct my clients to look at first. Number of servings per container is super important because if there's like 8 servings per container, then you got to do the multiplication, and it's like 2 servings per container, 12 grams of sugar. I'm like, that's 24 grams of sugar for a bottle.
Wow.
And then I was just kept thinking. Then I Googled like how much is in soda, and it's so what did I figure out? I'm writing a blog post about it right now. There's 39 grams of sugar in an equivalent amount of where there might be 24 grams of sugar in a kombucha. And I was like, ooh, that's just a little scary. And if you're drinking 1 or 2 a day, how much sugar are you getting in every day? And is it really contributing to your health? Or maybe we should like rethink this and look for the lower sugar ones. And what I do also is I have a soda stream, one of those makes your own fizzy water.
Yes.
And so I'll fill up half a glass of kombucha and then put fizzy water in it. And because then it's cheaper too, because kombucha is really expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And I do the same thing with when I make an alcoholic libation or a drink. I do the Tito's vodka, like a really clean, filtered vodka, so you're not getting any gluten or junk. And then I just use the ginger aid kombucha from GT Dave because it's got the 2 grams per serving versus like the 25 of the Buddha's Brew or whatever else, and mix that with a half a lemon squeeze and a little bit of carbonated lemon like LaCroix, and it's like just a great drink, and it's actually a clean drink that almost detoxifies you as you get a little buzzed.
Yeah, now that makes me want to start drinking again. Just kidding.
Oh yeah. So if that's something you can do, at least you can do it in a gentle way.
Yeah.
But if you can't do it, obviously we got to know, what we can handle. So yeah, just kind of add that as our little disclaimer.
Yeah.
Now,
if you're having 5 or 6 of those every night, probably not a good idea.
yeah, ideally moderation, make it part of your maybe 10% or 5% or even 1%, and maybe even 0% depending on what you can handle.
Yeah, because there are studies, like, because I don't drink, a lot of times people make the mistake to think that I think that everybody shouldn't drink. And there are studies that say that moderate alcohol consumption can actually be healthy. So if you can, go ahead. I have no judgment.
And on that note, can you just talk a little bit, so we had this whole idea of addiction, which is, some people may be addicted to exercise, addicted to a lot of different things. So how would you, where does the line cross where it's a healthy addiction and now it's an unhealthy addiction? How do you define that when you're working with your patients?
I don't think that there really is any healthy addictions. You can draw the line between what I call process addictions and then substance addictions. So process addictions are like exercise, gambling, shopping.
Right.
And then there's the actual chemical addictions, like drugs and alcohol, prescription pain medication, when you talk about all the different, because we're not just talking about illegal drugs, because prescription drug addiction is a huge thing as well. And it's a really hard thing to combat because most people think because it's legal and their doctors prescribed it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about exercise addiction, I have had clients that do exercise too much and it's kind of hard to back them off. And that's where kind of like the adrenal stress index tests help.
Yeah.
To show them where they are on that line. But with my luck, every time I run a test on a client when I'm trying to show them something to get them to make a change, it usually shows the opposite.
Right.
Like it'll say, oh, they're adrenally fine. I'm like, oh, I can't try to get them to slow down. And then like a food addiction. And I think food addiction is to me, it's a fascinating subject because there are actual 12-step programs devoted to helping people kick food addictions. And I'm not sure how well they work. And that's where I probably make a lot of people mad and become very controversial.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these 12-step, and I'm in general, I'm in favor of 12-step programs because I do help. They're not for everybody, but they do help a lot of people with their issues. But when it comes to food, some of the crazy things that go on inside these 12-step programs, like I've heard things like you can't have any spices and you can't eat more than 1 fruit at any time, like crazy rules that I think can develop into eating disorders.
Yeah.
And anorexia and bulimia. I remember I had somebody call me one time from Vegas who was in a recovering alcoholic, but she was also trying to lose weight. And she said, I broke my abstinence. And that means in the eating programs that basically you relapse. And I said, well, what did you do? And she's in Vegas. Okay.
Yeah. All those buffets.
Think of the buffets. And
I know.
she goes, I went to Denny's and I scrambled eggs and I asked them like you told me, to make sure that they used butter and that they didn't add any pancake batter, all the things, the crazy things they can do. And then I didn't get the potatoes. I got the fruit cocktail or the fruit. And it was cantaloupe, honeydew, and watermelon and strawberries. And I ate it. And I said, okay. And I'm trying to wait for the diving headfirst into the dessert buffet part of it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had more than one fruit at one time. And I'm like, oh my God, we need to stop this craziness. This is not any way to live long term. And I also think that food addiction feels really addicting when you're in the moment of it because your brain's not working right, like we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. If you're depriving yourself of fat and of animal protein or all the crazy yo-yo dieting things we do, sugar can feel addicting. But once you're nourished, maybe you can have that ice cream every once in a while. And that's kind of my goal with my clients is there's nothing that's off the table. There's no yes food list. There's no food list.
Yeah. And in my family, there's a history of addiction. And I think it's good to have a definition of addiction. So I kind of classify it from being addicted to a habit that produces a result in your life that you don't like, that's maybe destructive. Like if I could have a glass of alcohol tonight and I could then function afterwards and go to sleep and then function the next day and be, good with my family, that's great, right? I enjoy that result. But some people may have 2, 3, 4, 5, not get up the next day, forget their job, forget their kids and their responsibilities. And that may be a habit that produces a result you don't like. How do you feel about that kind of classification?
That's a good classification. How I kind of classify it is kind of a two-part question. If once you start with that substance or process or whatever it is, you can't stop. Or if you really want to stop, but you can't, you really want to not do it anymore, but you can't. Mm-hmm. If you really don't want to drink anymore, but you can't stop drinking, but then if you can't just have one drink, you want 10 drinks.
Right.
It's kind of like that thing. One is never enough, or one is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. Right. It's like you just can't go down that road, and that is good. When you start having negative effects to your life, and that can be it doesn't mean you lost your job. I know people that got sober and quit drugs and they still had 2 cars in the driveway and their wife and their kids and all that. And then there's other people that end up in jail and lose everything and homeless. And so there's a huge spectrum of things. And they've recently changed the DSM-5 as which classifies psychiatric disorders. They've recently changed the way they look at alcohol and drug addiction. And so it affects more people, but then it doesn't affect as many people to say you need to be abstinent. They're working on something what they call harm reduction. Mm-hmm. And if they can get some people to not drink as much or not use as much, but maybe not be abstinent because they keep failing at that, mm-hmm. then that's kind of where the goal of the CDC and the AMA is right now, is this harm reduction.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And would you mind kind of going into your story behind addiction and how you kind of pulled yourself kind of out of that with nutrition and whatever other modalities you used that were beneficial to you?
Well, way back I had no idea, and that's why this is so crazy to me now, is how did I not know? How did nobody for the first 10 years of my sobriety tell me that what I put into my body might affect?
I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, not once. And in fact, in one of the books that people read to get sober, it actually says on one of the pages, but you have to remember this book was written in the 30s, maybe once the alcoholic is not drinking anymore, they might need some sugar every once in a while to keep their energy level up.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But, so for the first 10 years, and I even worked, so before the food company, I was a director of finance for a large San Jose-based drug and alcohol treatment center. So I worked in the field for 4 years as well. And we ordered the food for the treatment center from Costco. And it was not, and we were instructed to get the cheap, to cut as much costs because it was a profit-driven company. And not, like I said, there's nothing wrong with profit. Sometimes people say I'm a communist or something, and I'm definitely not. But we just need to be aware. But yeah, so for the first 10 years, nobody told me what I put in my body might affect my sobriety.
Oh,
And then I changed the way I ate, and my sobriety somehow became easier. And that's when I started putting the pieces together, because I struggled. I
yeah.
struggled for I went to treatment for the first time. So I drank, my first drink was in 7th grade. So, I mean, we're talking, I drank when I was young.
Wow.
I went into treatment for the first time when I was in my 20s, but it was more that I didn't feel like I kind of needed a break from the real world, because it was like I didn't want to go to work and I didn't want to pay the bills. I just wanted to kind of a break from reality. And so, of course, that didn't stick. And then in the 90s, I went from being a functional alcoholic, where I drank at night, primarily wine, primarily, where I thought I had insomnia, so I had to take a couple drinks before I went to bed, to drinking that big bottle of wine every night. And then an old friend of mine came back into my life and happened to be doing methamphetamine. And so I thought, hey, why not? Makes you thin and gives you energy. And within 6 months, I had lost everything. And when I mean everything, my roommate had changed the locks on the door,
Oh, wow.
and my car got repossessed, and I lost my job. And, I had always, done pretty well in my profession. I went to school to become an accountant. And
Right.
so I've always, made a pretty good living and worked really hard. So that's kind of where my drinking and using, and people say, and I hear it today, I just laugh, that it's impossible to get sober from methamphetamine. It's like, wait a minute.
Right.
I haven't done it in 16 years. And sometimes I think the professional community, the psychiatric community, and the media make it into this big, huge thing that we can't overcome, when maybe if we made it more of a holistic approach, maybe it's not just the 12 steps, and maybe it's not just drug treatment, but what about the food and lifestyle piece? And that's what Evolved Recovery is all about.
That's great. We're definitely going to get into some more action items. But I see this commonly in the addiction world, just the conventional kind of 12 steps. When I was in doctorate school, I used to go lecture at some of these places, and these people really didn't want to hear from me. They really didn't. I mean, part one of the 12 steps is let go, let God, and it's kind of this victimized approach where this is just the cross you have to bear in life. And if anyone's gone to a 12-step, especially Alcoholics Anonymous, it's very simple. You just sit there and you observe all the donuts being passed around, and it's 9 p.m. at night, and people are like drinking like caffeinated coffee, like by like the liter, and people are outside smoking cigarettes, going back and forth. It's like, oh my gosh, these people are literally just trading one addictive substance for a more socially accepted addictive substance.
Yeah,
what's your take on that?
It is true. And, I am a member of a 12-step organization, and we have to remain anonymous at this level. I have no problem saying I'm a drug and alcohol. I have drug and alcohol problems, but I am a member, and I do go to 12-step meetings. And I think it really depends on the meeting and where you are and your location, because I know some places that I've been that's just like, it's very much of a pity party and a victimization.
Yes.
But where I live in the San Jose area, it's very strong, where you are, yes, you are an alcoholic, but now you are responsible. You were, so now you need to do the work to recover.
Yeah.
There's no like victimhood. It's just not tolerated around here.
Yeah.
But I can see where it is. But the food, the donuts, the cookies, the coffee, up until, the 8 o'clock meeting where people are drinking coffee, and they're smoking cigarettes outside. And I talk about that with some of my clients. A lot of my clients are in recovery, and they're like, well, I can drink coffee at 9 o'clock at night and I can still sleep. And it's all about education. Well, you may feel like you're sleeping.
Right.
But this is really what's going on, and you're not getting that quality of sleep. And when you don't get the quality of sleep, you're going to crave carbohydrates all day long the next day. And once you kind of get that once you start educating people to what is really going on in their brain and in their body, then changes can be made.
Yeah. And I think, you brought an interesting analogy back when you said you were 7 years old and you had that first, glass of alcohol, if you will. What was that like? What did that do to your internal dialogue, just to your mental status? Did you feel like for the first time you felt normal? What was that feeling for you?
Well, I wasn't 7. I was in 7th grade.
7th grade. I'm sorry. 7th grade.
No, it's okay. Some people do. I mean, some people's parents give them alcohol
Yeah.
at young ages,
Yep.
But you know what it was is we had a very disrupted childhood. Nothing, wrong with that is that my mom died when I was really young,
Oof.
and my dad was a single father, and he worked for Hewlett Packard in the managerial executive capacity, and so he got transferred a lot. So I was the new kid a lot growing up, and being a new kid is kind of tough, and you don't feel like you belong. And so I remember in 7th grade drinking, and when I was in 7th grade, I lived in Geneva, Switzerland, of all places.
Wow.
Which is a very, very, very wealthy city. And I went to school with the children of shahs and sheiks and from the Middle East, where they wore fur coats and they had bodyguards, and I was just a little middle class girl from Santa Clara, California.
Wow.
And so I felt really less than. And when I drank that alcohol, it made me feel a part of, and it made me feel like I belonged, and it made me feel grown up, and it made me feel important.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot. And when I talk to my patients about, these things, there are constructive vehicles to kind of balance brain chemistry, diet, nutrition, blood sugar, meditation, stress reduction, sleep. And there are destructive vehicles, meaning in the moment it makes you feel good, but if you keep doing it, it's going to eventually break you down. And that's kind of like all the things that you probably teach your patients about.
You just hit on like almost every tenet of evolved recovery with you when you talked about meditation, stress management, sleep.
Yeah.
Those are all the things that, we have this program that we call kind of like, it's like the jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces kind of fit together to evolve your recovery into something more than it is right now.
That's great. And I know we've talked in the past that I think Julia Ross was a big help for you with the mood cure and the diet cure. Was that correct?
Yes, so I actually read both the mood cure and the diet cure when I was in nutrition school, and towards the end of nutrition school, I went to her 3-day workshop up in Marin County. And I've talked to her at length, and I almost did her really long. She has like a 2-year program. However, it was just kind of a thing, like it was fate. I really believe that things happen for a reason. And for 3 of the in-person workshops that we were supposed to go meet one-on-one with her, one was like Paleo FX and one was the Ancestral Health Symposium. And I wasn't going to miss either one of those. So it was like, I think the world was saying that I did not complete that 2-year program. But what she teaches is so valuable. First of all, that we need to eat real food, that we need the animal protein to create our neurotransmitters, and that supplementing with amino acids and other cofactors really can help when you're trying to get sober and when you're suffering from depression. That's what the mood cure really talks about. And even if you're trying to get healthy and lose weight, that's what the diet cure talks about. And I do use the acid supplementation with a lot of my clients, but what I have a hard time with is compliance, because a lot of the amino acids need to be taken on an empty stomach, or a lot of people don't like to take supplements and they forget. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Can you talk about how important blood sugar stability is with addiction?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. So, and I try to explain this to people when they, that when you wake up in the morning, the last thing you want to eat is a whole bunch of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to spike your blood sugar. And when your blood sugar, you spike your blood sugar, and then it's the crash. It's the crash, and then it's the ups and downs. And you're shooting your brain with blood sugar, and you're going up and down, and your blood only wants sugar within a really specific range, and your brain needs sugar, but only a little bit.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to food addiction, it's huge, because you really want to keep that blood sugar stable, because the cravings just go down. And the same thing for drug and alcohol, because actually, when the metabolism of alcohol is just fascinating.
Yeah.
That your body really wants to get rid of that first. When the minute you take a drink, everything kind of stops.
Yes.
Because your liver says. I always tell my clients, your liver says, "Hey, wait a minute, I got to get this toxic substance out of me. I'm not going to process hormones. I'm not going to break down cholesterol. I'm not going to detox your body." And so we really need to realize that. That maintaining that blood sugar when we're not drinking and using at a steady state, our brains are just so much happier, and the cravings are less and the willpower is more.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times in some of the recovery communities, willpower is discounted. And I think that it's important to know that willpower does exist, and there's things we can do in life to make it greater, and there's things we can do in life to deplete it.
Yeah. And there's a quote by Yogananda. It goes, environment is stronger than willpower, which is really important because what you surround yourself in, your house,
yes.
people, super important. But I even go one step beyond that, where hormones and physiology and biochemistry is stronger than willpower. If you eat a really good blood sugar stabilizing meal and you're managing the stress, that your biochemistry and your hormones go in a direction that just keeps you so much more stable. Can you talk about that part?
For me, it's the fascinating part of the hormone regulation is the hunger hormones. To me, come first, because a lot of times we come into this with diet mentality that we have to be hungry and to lose weight. And so we're dysregulating the leptin and the ghrelin. And so that's kind of the thing that first gets disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're hungry and these hormones start getting disrupted, it's like a rubber band that's slowly being pulled back, and then you're going to let go, and then you fall headfirst into that pink box of donuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the listeners, so they can kind of connect the dots, when you take a lot of sugar in, what happens is you spike this hormone called insulin, and that shuttles, in particularly tryptophan and L-tyrosine, across that blood-brain barrier more than any other amino acid. So that spikes serotonin and dopamine. So when people talk about sugar being addictive, the reason why it's addictive, it's spiking these neurochemicals in the brain. The problem is doing that long-term will actually deplete those levels. And that's why Susan's talked about the amino acids, because those can actually replete it. So I know there's been studies, for instance, with rats will choose Oreo cookies over cocaine. Are you familiar with that study?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting rat studies with addiction, but yeah, I am familiar with that one.
And can you talk about like what supplements you use to modulate dopamine and serotonin? I think you mentioned some of the amino acids. Can you go into specifics? So like patient comes in, what would you do supplement-wise?
So this is what I start with. So it depends on the client, because I'm a nutritionist. I don't have patients. I have clients, scope of practice. And so most of this beginning supplements I use with people, I use a lot of 5-HTP in the afternoon and the evening, between lunch and dinner, and then between dinner and bedtime. I do sometimes use L-tyrosine depending on the person. I try to get them off coffee if they're going to use L-tyrosine, because it can be overstimulating. I do use some chromium polynicotinate to help balance blood sugar.
Great.
And to help with cravings. A good B vitamin. I really like the Thorn. I think they have a whole line of B vitamins, but it's one of them, and I have it on my counter, and I can't remember the exact name of it.
I think it's the stress arrest or the stress factors. Does that sound right?
I think so. Yeah, one of those.
I use that one.
B vitamins are really, really, really important in blood sugar regulation and neurotransmitter production. Zinc is another thing. Depending on the person, I myself, and I can tell by a zinc tally test that I run through zinc pretty fast. So I supplement on and off myself with zinc. And so I keep a bottle in the refrigerator. If I'm going to go see a client, I can give them the test, because zinc is one of the other things in the neurotransmitter production studies have shown that addicts and alcoholics tend to run low on zinc as well.
Oh, wow. And what about the adrenals?
You know what, I don't do a lot of adrenal work right now, because usually I don't get a lot of people that are in that area. Most people, 80% of the people, just some food and some good supplementation will work. I don't have as many chronically stressed out people. Sometimes I'll run an adrenal stress index if I think people are overstressed, but I don't get a lot of people coming to me with complaints of fatigue.
Oh, okay.
And so, so I don't do a lot of supplementation in that area, and that's just my client population.
And what do you
So
think
I get
about
the
doing?
real beginner people.
Got it.
The real beginner people, it's like sometimes food is all that they need. It's amazing.
Wow.
Food is real food. It's just like taking sugar and grains out. Sometimes that's all they need.
Yeah, food is the foundation. Anything else needs to be stacked upon that foundation. I totally agree. And can you talk about lab testing for neurotransmitters? I know there's some controversial stuff out there. There's some
Not
indirect.
a big fan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I really haven't seen Julia Ross wasn't a big when I took her class, and the more functional medical. I always ask people what they think about. I'm curious what your take is, but I don't think that they've been perfected enough to really show what is going on in somebody's brain. Are you talking about the urinary ones?
Yeah, there's some urinary ones that are out there that are kind of a little bit sketchy. I won't go over the individual labs, but then there's some that are more indirect markers. I'm a bigger fan of the organic acid indirect markers like homovanillate and vanilmandylate for kind of metabolites of dopamine and 5-hydroxyindoloacetate for 5-HTP. Those can be helpful, but I just think it's important to note that they're not direct. They're like indirect metabolites, but it can give you a window into what's going on.
Right. Yeah. I use a lot of like questionnaires and ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
And, when are you craving the foods that you're craving? Is it in the evening? What type of foods are you craving? What was your drug and drink of choice when you were out there? Like if you were a meth addict, you might probably have you probably might need some tyrosine. If you were an alcoholic, we might look for some GABA support or some serotonin support, kind of looking at what their history is and then do they have depression symptoms? Do they have ADHD symptoms? Do they have I use a combination of the Julia Ross questionnaire and the Apex Energetics that has a brain questionnaire. And I kind of marry those two together to try and see what's going on. And not in the beginning though, like I really wanted to change the food first and then see, like if they're unable to stick with the real food, then let's see, what's going on underneath.
That makes sense. And what would be like the big 3 symptoms for each category? So like what would be 3 dopamine symptoms? What would be 3 serotonin symptoms? Just the big ones.
So serotonin symptoms, when I look at people craving sugar when the sun goes down in the evening, like they're able to say, and I'm putting in air quotes good because I hate that term. They were able to be good all day. Yeah. And then the sun goes down and then kind of everything goes haywire. So that's kind of a serotonin deficient. If they have depression symptoms, they have a lack of wanting to take on life and they're not sleeping well and those kind of things. That's more of a serotonin issue. For dopamine, it's more of I look at for the supplementing with L-tyrosine or DL-phenylalanine.
Yep.
I will look at energy, caffeine addiction, inability to be able to give up coffee. And then there's the kind of if you cry at a commercial or you're kind of you're emotionally a sensitive person, that's sometimes when we bring in the DL-phenylalanine. Yeah,
and that's probably looking more for lower endorphins.
Yeah, and that's a chronic pain issue also, which I found because I take, I have a back, I have my back condition, which has gotten so much better over the years, but I take that. The
DLPA.
Yeah.
Pain relief.
Pain relief, yeah.
That's a good one.
I love that product. I love that product. And it has some DL-phenylalanine in it. And I think that's one of the reasons because I am one to cry at a commercial.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people with addictions and alcoholism tend to be on more of the sensitive side.
Yeah. And I know.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I know Julia, this kind of sticks in my brain because I remember Julia Ross saying this at a lecture I went to maybe 10 years ago. It takes 19 amino acids to make endorphin. Did you know that? Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. Well, it's so crazy that amino acids play such a huge role in brain chemistry and in neurotransmitter production. And then if you're an addict and an alcoholic and you try to to do a vegetarian or a vegan diet, and you're
yeah.
really going to be struggling to get some of those amino acids in. And that's what I always say, like when we created Evolved Recovery, I kind of took the hardline stance and said that I'm going to say animal protein is going to be one of the things that's required, that you're not going to be able to do this unless it's a very, very well constructed vegetarian or a vegan, which I'm not qualified because I don't use that in my practice.
Yeah.
You have to find somebody that's going to be able to make sure you're getting your B12 and you're getting your tryptophan and you're, and it's really hard. It really is. You have to have a very well constructed vegan or vegetarian diet.
And what's unique about the animal proteins that you don't quite get with the plant proteins?
Well, first of all, they're easier to digest, so you're going to get more out of them. And then the tryptophan, if you look at what goes into the serotonin pathway, tryptophan is the main ingredient, and you're really going to get that in with the animal proteins, and you're going to be able to get the most out of it that you can.
That's great. Awesome. Well, is there anything else? I have my closing questions I'd like to give you, but is there anything else really important that the listeners should be aware about, Susan?
Just that we're going to have a 6-week, if you know it, like I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are like, well, I don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. And you probably don't, and that's awesome, but everybody knows somebody. So we have a 6-week course. It's like the beginner of the beginner for people that don't know about real food, that don't know about paleo or ancestral or any of that, to walk them through in 6 weeks to have a really solid foundation of diet and lifestyle to take their recovery to the next level. So that's coming out by July 1st. So our newsletter subscribers, of course, will get a discount. So you can go over to our website and sign up for the newsletter to get that.
That's great. And that's over at evolverecovery.com.
evolvedrecovery.com. And then also, if the people that sign up, we give away some free what we call guided recovery meditations, because meditation is one of the cornerstone of our program, is that we really want people to get people meditating. So you get those for free.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So
and Kendall, my business partner, does the meditations, and she used to be in radio, so they're really awesome and very relaxing.
Love it. That is so cool. So I want to end with my last 2 questions here. If you were stuck on a desert island, what herb or supplement would you want to have with you?
I would probably want to have my zinc.
Zinc. Okay.
Yeah. I run low on zinc sometimes, and I get this condition where my mouth waters a lot because of it.
Yep.
And it's so annoying. That would between that or my B vitamins. I don't know. I go back and forth. But right now I would probably be, just because I think I can get along by just eating real food and being good. The zinc, I still think no matter what I ate, I'm always going to run a little deficient in.
Got it. And then what 3 tips would you recommend to any of your patients that just want to perform better and just kick more ass?
Sleep. Set a bedtime. Set a bedtime. Figure out what time you need to wake up in the morning, and then subtract 8 hours, and that's what time you need to go to bed, and turn off all electronics and all that sleep hygiene stuff we always talk about. Go for a walk every day. I am like the one that it's like I'm the broken record. Like my clients and the people I teach workshops to, like, walking again. Can you just stop talking about it? Reduces stress. It helps regulate your sleep-wake cycle. They just had a study, and I should should find the link for you, that when you're craving chocolate, if you go out for a walk, it's supposed to, like, the incidence of your chocolate cravings going down are just huge.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
So you said 3. So what did I say? Sleep,
walking,
and then the last one would be a toss-up between making sure to get plenty of protein and fat in the morning and meditating.
Love it.
I think eggs and bacon first thing in the morning. Stay away from all the carbs that you can in the morning, but meditating really takes your life and your health into a new dimension as well. Just 5 or 10 minutes a day. It's crazy.
Awesome. And you can get those, for our listeners, you can get those meditations over at evolverecovery.com for the meditation sign up. Yep. Is there any other info about, social media, website stuff, podcast stuff that you want to give out about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, we are Evolved Recovery on every modality of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm Evolve Nutrition on Twitter and on Facebook. We post stuff all the time everywhere. The newsletters go out for both sites, one every other week, one every week. If you want any like basic nutritional information, head over to evolvenutrition.com, where I write my label reading articles, my kombucha articles, recipes once a month. But basic, I'm not a food blogger, so my recipes are pretty basic, but it's the things that I eat every day to help people realize that this doesn't have to be hard. You can whip up some sausages and have them eat them all week.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Susan, for coming on the podcast. It was great chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. It was super fun.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.